Welcome to the Car Guys. This week, a guide to appreciation or depreciation. Which of the cars in our collection have depreciated and which ones have gone up in value? You asked for it and we thought this would be an interesting topic to cover. Which of the Car Guys cars have gone up or down in value? That's what we're going to answer this week. I'm in the Rolls-Royce Phantom Coupe. Now, a lot of you in the comments naturally assumed that the cars in the Car Guys collection would be depreciating and therefore they should be added to the cost of ownership. However, there was a very good reason why there was no cost of depreciation or cost of finance. Overall, the Car Guys collection is appreciating, not depreciating. And also, the Car Guys cars are generally not financed at all. Now, I know that must be an alien concept to a lot of you because you will assume that if you're on YouTube, then you must be financed to the hilt and every car must have some enormous balloon payment on it, and I have to do YouTube just to cover the catastrophically enormous finance payments every month for all of my cars. This may come as a shock. Incredible as it seems, it is true, the Car Guys collection is all bought and paid for. Now, it may be that that's not the most sensible way of doing it. In fact, there's a lot of people that will, even if they've got the money to pay for their cars, actually do finance in order to spread that money more widely so that they can buy even more cars. Personally, I hate the idea of having a huge amount of money hanging over me. I don't like the idea of necessarily financing my cars because it sort of feels like they're not mine. It feels like they could be taken away at any point. It doesn't feel real to me. When someone says they've got these fantastic cars and then I find out that they're hugely leveraged to get them, to me it's a little bit fake. It's a little bit like saying you've got something when you haven't. Until that final payment is made, the finance company or the bank actually owns that car. But let's talk about depreciation and appreciation. Make no mistake, depreciation when it comes to the car world is the norm. If you buy a £60,000 car, then in 3 years it's most likely going to be worth about 25 to 30,000 if you're lucky. If it's a Maserati Levant, it'll be worth about 10,000. Sorry, Maserati. It's a relatively modern concept that actually cars can increase in value, appreciate, rather than just lose money hand over fist. We'll go through the Car Guys collection in detail in a minute, and I'll take you through the relative values of all of the cars and the overall position as to whether we are up or down. Are we currently in the black or are we in the red? When you're looking at the values of cars, you've got to take certain factors into account, namely how many were produced. How highly prized is the model within the range? How much did you get it for? How long have you had it for? How much mileage have you done? Is it in good condition? Has it been stored well? What's the potential in the future? So you have to factor all these things in, and that's really what's going to give you its appreciation profile. A lot of you assume that we've lost thousands, or in some case hundreds of thousands, but of course if you have a portfolio of cars and some lose a little but some gain a lot, overall you could be in quite an advantageous situation. And also, if you've got cars which are, say, around about break even now, but have the potential to massively increase, again, that's a good place to be. When Jason and I are choosing cars for the collection, we always have an eye on what the future value is going to be. There's a judgment call that we look at and we go, do I love this car so much that I'm prepared to only lose money on it because I just love it? Or do I love it and there's a good argument that it may go up in the future? That's the perfect storm. If you can get those two things together, which the majority of the Car Guys cars possess, if you get that, then you're laughing. Now, I'm in the Phantom Coupe today, and that's particularly poignant when talking about appreciation or depreciation, because many of you will assume that this huge hulking Goliath can only depreciate. It must be losing a fortune because it's a big Rolls-Royce, and Rolls-Royces lose money. But wait 1 minute. Rolls-Royce is never going to be bonkers enough to make a coupe version of the Phantom platform. because they now have the Rolls-Royce Wraith, which is their equivalent coupe. So that makes this car rare, it makes it limited, it means that people in the future will want to possess it. And when you get that, that's a good recipe for an appreciating classic. The Phantom Coupe at the moment is worth at least the same that I paid for it. And in the future, talk to anyone connected with Rolls-Royce and they will tell you, hang on to the Phantom Coupe because it will be a future classic. It has all the prestige and profile of a range-topping Rolls-Royce, but it comes with that beautiful additional sweet spot of appreciation potential. Ferrari 360 Challenge Stradale. This is a car that many believe should have shot up in value, but actually it never really has. There was a bit of a surge back in the mid-2010s, but it's never really gone north of 210,000, 220,000 pounds. It's never really captured the sort of premiums that befit its status within Ferrari, that fit its status within collectors of Ferraris. I really hoped when I bought it that it was going to be a minimum £250,000 car, but it's never really got there. And if anything, values have softened a little bit again. That does make it an absolute bargain. I would probably reckon on being about £30,000 up on that car. Ferrari 458 Italia. So the big factor with that car is I've done 15,000 miles on it. So I bought a white Ferrari and I did lots of miles in it, which are traditionally recipes for destroying value and depreciation. On the plus side, the 458 is the last naturally aspirated V8 Ferrari that has ever been made. It's a highly prized model, and in the future, people will be desperate for these cars. .458 Speciale Aperta. This is the real jewel in the crown of the CarGuys collection when it comes to appreciation. Like the F40, this car has appreciated significantly. I got this car for list price. I'm the first owner, and therefore any increase in value, I've got the entire benefit of it stored up. So on the plus side, it's again a 458, so the last naturally aspirated V8 that Ferrari's made. It's the Speciale, which everyone absolutely loves, and one of the most highly prized Ferraris that's ever been created. And it's the open top version of the Speciale, which means there's only 499 made, so it's limited, it's rare, it's highly coveted. This is the perfect storm. You cannot get a better situation than this. When I first bought it, I was offered £1 million for this car. £1 million. The only real downside is that I've done 6,000 miles in it, which in the scheme of 458 Speciale Apertas is a lot of miles. I mean, there are many that have done less than 1,000 miles, which is of course criminal. So as a consequence, the Speciale Aperta is now worth approximately £600,000. It's kind of academic because I'm not selling it, but it does give you a bit of a warm feeling. I do not think the piece of Spider will be as attractive as the Speciale Aperta in terms of values, future values, but I don't think it's going to do badly. I bought my 355 Spider for £60,000 in 2003, never planned to sell it, and thanks to an overall surge in values across Ferraris, particularly for naturally aspirated and particularly for manual cars, I always expected that car to be worth probably just a bit less than I paid for, and actually having bought it, it probably went down to about 40 for many years. In the last 3 or 4 years, it's shot right back up. So it's done pretty well actually. Land Rover Series 2A. So this is a short wheelbase chop top Land Rover, real classic. I bought this in mint condition for £10,000, but long term, if I keep it in good condition, I think it's got the ability to be anywhere between 10 and 15,000. The F12 TDF, I wasn't really interested in getting a TDF when they were launched, wasn't that bothered, and then I had a massive hankering for them a few years later, and of course by that point they had shot up in value, and it looked to the world like they were going to keep appreciating, they were going to keep going. But that first owner made £400,000 profit on that car. It's incredibly well optioned, it's in triple layer yellow. It's a beautiful car, it's one of 799, so well done, sir. I'm just the sort of sucker that you needed to come along and buy it, and I do feel like a bit of a sucker with the TDF because even though I love it, I've done two things really, really badly. Namely, I paid too much for it and I've used it. I've done 6,000 miles in it, and that means it's now done 6,000 miles, which means it's one of the higher mileage TDFs. So if I'm looking to sell it, that obviously is going to go against it in terms of value and desirability. That is now also coupling with the fact that the market is a bit soft, and it's definitely soft for TDFs. Although still a very, very sexy and attractive limited edition car, values are coming down and down. McLaren 675 LT. This was a car that I probably bought more with my heart than my head, if I'm being honest. The LT market was around about the £300,000 mark. It's been like that for a couple of years. Rock solid, you could set your watch by it. But in the last probably 8 months, values have started to come down, and I think that's because of the impact of the 720. They make a lot of them and values of those have been absolutely crashing. So if you buy a 720, you might as well just burn at least 100 grand, if not more. The 600 LT seems like a cheaper, faster model, so therefore people are wondering whether that's a better model. And as a consequence, the values of the 675 LTs have dropped down to, at their lowest point, £200,000 for a poorly spec'd one. But a well-spec'd car is probably 220, 230. And that's a real shock. Whilst I thought I would be basically even on that car, at the moment I'm in a loss situation. But I am hoping that's just a temporary situation, because one thing you have to bear in mind is that the 675 is a very, very special car. It's an exceptional McLaren. I think it's a future classic. I know personally 4 people who have bought 675 LTs in the last 3 weeks alone. So what's going to happen is that all the availability is going to suddenly be sucked up. All the cars are going to go. There's still going to be people that want them, and prices are going to start to come up again. That's my prediction for the 675 LT. It's such a special car, there is no way that values are not going to come up on the climb. So provided I hold on to it, I should be in a much better position with that car. Lamborghini Gallardo 550/2 Valentino Balboni right-hand drive car. It's manual, and therefore it is believed that there are less than 10 that have been made out of the 250 limited edition models that were created in the first place. I don't believe that Lamborghini London really understood the significance of that model or the rarity of it, but I managed to get it for a real bargain, and I would say that now, based on other cars that have sold, based on its sheer desirability, that car is now worth a minimum of £250,000. Because let's face it, with all the manufacturers going to electric technology and losing the naturally aspirated engines in the range, that is a naturally aspirated V10 Lamborghini, and it's a manual, and it's limited edition. Porsche 911, the 930. This is an interesting tale because what we have here is the last year of production of the 930. 5-speed, so they only made the 5-speed in 1989. Low mileage, it's in mint condition, it's mechanically perfect. This is one of the all-time great desirable 911s, and anyone with a Porsche collection would want one of these in it. On the downside, I did spend a lot at auction buying it in the first place, and then I had to spend a bit getting it up to speed because it was not in a great state mechanically. I still think in the future, going forward, that'll be a relatively safe. So I'm going to say that one's a sort of, I'm going to say I'm going to get my money back on that, but I don't think I'm going to get much more. Honda NSX, 1991, original, manual, silver with black roof. Very, very desirable car. It's a classic shape, it's a classic design, it's got an Ayrton Senna connection to it. Those cars are highly prized, and particularly the manual cars are highly prized. It's done about 68,000 miles, which is perfectly fine for an NSX. So I'm going to put the current value on that at about £50,000. So I'm up 15 on the NSX, which I'm quite happy about. Honda Prelude 1995 VTEC. Although it's a stunning car in its very low mileage, I think the market for people buying Honda Preludes, doesn't matter whether it's the VTEC manual or not, I think it's such a small, quirky market that I'm going to say it's probably worth about what I paid for it. So I don't think, I've had fun with it. I do not think it's going to appreciate to lofty heights in the future. BMW 750i, now it's a V12, it's in pristine condition, or at least it would be if someone hadn't smashed the wing mirror off of it on the motorway. It's low mileage, but again, the market for these things is quite small. Who the hell else is mad enough to want to have a large 7 Series with a V12 gas guzzling engine in this day and age? I think it's one of the prettiest, smartest looking BMWs. I think it's an absolute classic, but I don't think there are many people like me, and therefore the market for them is either uncertain or fairly soft. Having bought the car from Hexagon and having put miles on it, so it originally had 24,000 miles, it's now done 35,000 miles, a slight loss of £2,000. And not forgetting the mighty Porsche 911 GT3 Touring. Now, regular viewers will know that I didn't get a slot for one of these from Porsche, so I had to buy it from a flipper, and that meant a huge premium. So in terms of value, I'm buggered before I start here. And no surprise, values of Tourings have now dropped to more sensible levels, making early adopters like myself look like proper mugs. But since I'm never selling it, it doesn't really matter. So that's the CarGuys collection from an appreciation-depreciation point of view. My impression overall is that we are at least equal, if not up, in terms of depreciation. And those that have gone up have more than covered the drops of the ones that have gone down. Let's go back to the HQ and tot up all the figures and find out where we're at in terms of a total level of depreciation or appreciation across all the cars. Let's see if we're ahead of the game. Let's see if we're in the money. So here it is, folks, the overall value level of the whole car collection. Up or down, what's the final number? And as we hoped, despite the big losses from the TDF and the McLaren, we're still in the black. Yeah! Thanks for watching this episode on appreciation and depreciation. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like what we're doing on the channel, please subscribe, leave likes and comments. We love it when you interact with the channel, and there'll be another Car Guys episode along next week.